Hi everyone, in this video let us understand how to delegate the access across AWS accounts using IAM rules. So what exactly is the delegation access? If you have multiple AWS accounts, it is quite common that you'll access all the AWS accounts from a central account. This is for easy operations. Let's get started. Let us first look at how a typical multi-AWS account framework looks like. You have a management account. Then within the management account, you have AWS organization service using which you will be creating multiple sub organizational units. For example, one of the organizational unit is security OU, which you have a separate AWS account called security account. This is meant for having all the security network access controls that you define across AWS accounts. Now, second, you may have one more organizational unit which is for monitoring. In this organizational unit, you will have dedicated AWS accounts for monitoring. This account typically is used for storing all the logs, metrics, and used for observability purposes. Another OU could be workload OU. This is where the actual business applications are running for the production workloads. So you may have multiple AWS accounts here. One could be for the dev, prod, and testing. Let us understand why multi-AWS account framework is needed in the first place. The first one is security and compliance reasons. For example, if you have multiple business applications, each application might have different security profiles, different control policies, or mechanisms around them. And if you are talking to an auditor for compliance reason, it's very easy to point them to a specific AWS account which is hosting all the sensitive workloads. For example, PCI DSS is one of the example. Next one is isolation. An AWS account provides a strong network security protection boundary. Any potential risk and threats can happen only within the AWS account. It will not affect other accounts. So there could be different security needs and different security profiles, or different teams may be operating on this account. So it's always better to isolate one account from another account. Isolation also provides strong data security. For example, if you're storing sensitive data in an account, it automatically limits the number of people who can access and manage the data. So that way we can prevent exposure to the sensitive data in the AWS account. So this is very important for compliance reasons. For example, if you look at general data protection regulation, which is GDPR compliance, so it's important to isolate the data in that account. So another reason is many teams. If you have many teams working on the same workload, each with a different responsibility and different roles, and they need to access different resources, so it's very easy and important to keep these teams into separate AWS accounts so that they will not step over other people's resources. And also, if you have different business applications, it's important and a good practice to keep these business applications in the respective AWS account so that we can manage these applications independent of each other. The last reason could be billing. A AWS account is the only true way to separate items at the billing level. So if you have multiple accounts, it's easy to track the cost and usage of different business units, functional teams, and individual users. So now let us talk about why delegated access. So far we discussed why multi-account framework really helps. Now, if you have those accounts, why do we require delegated access? First, we don't need to create illegal name users in the roles in each and every account, which is error prone and not a good practice. Second, you don't need to sign in and sign out across various AWS accounts. You can just access all the accounts from a single central account. It simplifies the operational processes, and also it will allow access the resources from a single development workspace. You don't have to switch the development workspaces or access different accounts by logging into them. All of that you can access from a single place. Now, let us understand a simple use case. For example, we have a production account where the applications are live serving the customers. Now, this application is accessing some information from an S3 bucket, and we have a dev account which is used as a sandbox for all the developers and testers. They will be deploying the applications locally and test it periodically. Once in a while, these developers also needs to access the production account, and there will be a set of IAM users or the roles which are available in the developer account, and these developers needs to access the resources in the production account, for example S3 bucket. So for this purpose, there should be a role in the production account to access the S3 bucket, and the users in the developer account will be able to assume this role and access the resources in the production account. This is just a very sample use case. There could be many other use cases where you require different resources, different roles, different responsibilities. Now, let us see various steps required to enable this cross-account access. First, we have to create an IAM role in the production account where the resources needs to be accessed. Second, we have to grant access to the IAM users in the developer account to assume this IAM role in the production account. And the third, the IAM users in the developer account should assume this IAM role in the production account so that they can get the temporary credentials to assume that role and then access the resources in the production account. Now, let us understand the flow in detail. Let us say we have a production account with this number, and we create an IAM role and provide necessary least privileged IAM permissions to this IAM role to access the resources in this account. Then we also need to update the trust policy of this IAM role to include the AWS account of the developer account where the developers needs to access this IAM role. So this account number, let's say 111, is the developer account number. So on the left side, you have the developer account where a group of IAM users will be working. And these users need to access this IAM role. So for that, they need to have a IAM permission to assume this role. So we can apply a group policy on the IAM group in the developer account to assume this role in the production account so that they can get temporary credentials to access this role. So let us understand how to configure this cross-account access. So we have the production account where the IAM role is there, and we have a dev account where IAM users are there. First, we need to create a file which is credentials file in the .aws folder. This file will contain the user called user underscore admin. So when we created the IAM user, we have created the access key and secret key. So those access key and secret key we need to enter under this user admin tab inside this credentials file. Then we will create one more file called config in the same .aws folder. Here we will create a profile called cross account prod, and in this we provide a role underscore ARN variable and assign that variable to a value of the IAM role which we have created in the production account. So this is the ARN of the IAM role that we created in the production account. And the source profile is one more variable we need to define, and this points to the user underscore admin over on the left. So the way it happens is whenever the user underscore admin, he wants to use this profile called cross account prod, what happens is indirectly he will be assuming the role, cross account role from the production account and gets the temporary credentials to access the resources in the production account. So using this, we can create any number of profiles and each profile can point to a different IAM role. So whenever the user underscore admin wants to access a particular resource, we can assume that role for that resource and get the temporary credentials only for that resource. So that way we don't have to create one single role, and instead we can create the multiple roles, each specific to the resources that are required to access by the user underscore admin in the dev account. So now let us understand in a lab how this exactly works in action.